I was going through the old digital archive and stumbled upon my college play reviews. I went to school to study acting. During my first year, we were given a reading list of influential as well as timely and hip stage plays. We had an assignment called our play journal, where we were tasked with choosing a play from the list and doing a little write-up to show we had read it. These are pretty short, so I'm going to share a few of them in one go. My first one is a little straight-laced and by the numbers, but I started having fun with these pretty quickly to help me get through the assignment. So, with all that being said, here we go. It was nice getting to read Romeo and Juliet again. I had forgotten just how key the supporting cast was, as oftentimes the discussion around this tragedy is overshadowed by quoting, "Wherefore art thou, Romeo?" and "Oh, happy dagger, this is thy sheath," leading some to the presumption that the title characters are the only ones who carry any weight of importance or noteworthy speaking lines. This, however, is not the case, as upon this particular reading I found myself identifying the most with the wingman of all wingmen, Mercutio. Of all the well-witted friends one could have, Romeo scored the greatest among them. Mercutio's fiery passion and humorous tongue are only met by his heartfelt loyalty and personal conviction. I always get very emotional when it comes time for Mercutio to fight Tybalt, knowing that he'll tragically lose inadvertently to Romeo. The man does a monologue about a love fairy. Doesn't he deserve better than to go out like a punk? And thus, Romeo and Juliet rears the head of one of its many victims who help paint the overall message of the piece. Romeo and Juliet, true to its genre of tragedy, is a cautionary tale. We're shown the story of two star-crossed lovers and how the interference of mortal men against their passion leads to an irredeemable amount of blood being spilt on all sides. It seems clear that Shakespeare's message was along the lines of "don't screw with love or it will screw with you." This is of course a timeless message, as evident by the play being a good 422 years old at time of writing and still culturally irrefutable. On a personal level, the gut punch of an ending in Romeo and Juliet was always softened to me by how often it was referred to and parodied in so many other stories. You know Romeo and Juliet are going to be dead by the end of the fifth act. But for me, at least, that always gave the piece an extra layer of dramatic irony. It's hard for me to get through the play, knowing without a shadow of a doubt what will happen, without just a little bit of me hoping that Juliet would wake up in time to stop Romeo from... This, to me, is what cements Romeo and Juliet as a masterpiece. I mean, how good does a story have to be to still surprise you when you know everything it's going to throw at you? Truly, Romeo and Juliet is a testament to the mastery of Shakespeare and his writing. I experienced Nick Payne's Constellations as an impromptu table read with a friend. Her boyfriend was at a school retreat, and I was just coming down from a crush after a very kind yet swift rejection. This led to a somewhat interesting performance of the play between the two of us, as we threw ourselves into the roles much more than I think we would have on a slow Saturday night had everything been all la-la and tutu. Given the context of our reading, as well as the robust cast list from which to choose, I found myself identifying with Roland quite easily. Throughout the play, Roland is, in the words of Brené Brown, doing the best he can, as he attempts time and time again to make things work with Marianne. From every time he fails horribly at cute banter to every time he succeeds in doing something romantic, I felt a very distinct connection with the boy who likes a girl. His decisions, for good and for ill, are very much relatable to what I assume are common feelings in the romance space. This is even before we get into the play's gimmick of multiple realities, as we the audience get to feel both Roland's guilt and justified rage during a segment in which Roland cheats on Mary and vice versa. As far as intent, I had to be careful with this play, as my opinions regarding its story might make me shoot from the hip that Nick Payne was writing with such motives as to confuse, disappoint, and remove hope from the audience. Its critical acclaim and status as one of our required reading materials, however, urges me to give the playwright the benefit of the doubt. I suppose, if one wanted to read into the text farther than "it sucks," a theme might emerge about many branching paths leading back to the same ending, that one shouldn't waste time because time is finite and your future will only be a slightly different color of miserable depending on the decisions you make. I suppose I could put that more objectively. One should not overanalyze one's decisions because, in the end, destiny is destiny. Is that better? My friend and I left Constellations' final page with a sense of confusion and disappointment. So, she's just dead then? No matter what? Our questions were only increased by the end, which shows us an alternate reality in which Roland and Marianne reunite, before Mary dies horribly, of course, because Roland asks her out instead of the other way around. I couldn't help but have one of my professor's voice in my ear as we read, hearing him say,
What does that mean?
I suppose I'm being a little too hard on this best-selling, award-winning British play from 2012. I thought a lot of the dialogue was very quippy and smart, and both Roland and Mary felt very relatable as human beings subject to the cold and cruel hand of fate. I suppose my issues arise in the form of more philosophical disagreements with the text, as phrases like, everything happens for a reason, and I have brain cancer and will die slowly in every reality for the rest of this play, kinda make me queasy. I suppose I'm just a sucker for a happy ending, and I need to come to peace with the fact that the best playwrights generally believe their work exists on a scale, a 1 being funny and inspirational, and a 10 being real art taken seriously. I suppose one could alternatively label this scale in a cultural cinematic context of optimistic to French. An Enemy of the People by Arthur Miller is a tragedy about a conceited doctor failing to convince a conceited town of imminent danger because of its conceited mayor. I suppose that may be an oversimplification of the play's plot, but at the end of the day, what is an enemy of the people if not the crucible, but with less witches and more bricks thrown through windows? We've all been in Dr. Stockman's shoes at one time or another, arguing something we're so doggone sure we're right about, and the whole world disagrees with us on, even if it's not as noble a hill to die on as a town's safety. There's nothing more frustrating than trying so hard to communicate to someone or someone who won't listen. I think this is Arthur Miller's point with the piece. He himself, as a writer who was being witch-hunted for ties to the Communist Party, was one small voice trying to argue against one big voice that was attempting to paint him as an enemy of the people. Miller is, in a way, Stockman. Who knows, maybe even he had a brick chucked through his window while monologuing about the value of truth. As mentioned previously, I can't help but draw many parallels, most of them likely purposeful given historical context, between An Enemy of the People and The Crucible. In complete transparency, I can't help but wish the latter was on our play reading list, as I could talk about it for ages. There's quite a lot of meat on the witch trial bones of the other Red Scare Miller tragedy, especially when you pull off the legs and dig into the thighs. The thighs in this case referring to the supernatural element of whether or not the girl's ritual in the woods actually did invite spirits of disharmony and accusation into the community, and how the redemption of the town is found through a man with hidden sin witnessing God to undo the damage wrought by a witnessed sin that did its best to hide the truth and promote damnation. Gosh, geez Louise, I love The Crucible. Just mentioning it gets me giddy, as well as distracted from An Enemy of the People. As such was my reading of the play. I enjoyed it, but its parallels of man versus mob kept reminding me of The Crucible, and remembering The Crucible would sometimes detach me from the script. Not in a, oh, I just can't appreciate this because I like the other play so much, but more in a subtle daydream kind of way that left me at the end with a, this play was good, but I still like the other play more. A thought which could easily be ascribed to the nostalgia of having read The Crucible first.
You know me better.
That, however, does not distract from the timeless and objective quality of An Enemy of the People, which I do recognize. Perhaps it's just that the theatrical adaptation of The Crucible puts my book-only experience of An Enemy of the People at a disadvantage, as my mental image of the good doctor can't really be compared to Daniel Day-Lewis's John Proctor. What I mean by that is that I can't picture Dr. Stockman sprinting up a hillside killing dudes with dual-wielded rifles, abolishing slavery, or directing a terrible Italian musical while high on cocaine, in an alternate ending of the script. So there you go, a play journal that quickly became a sort of review series from when I was in college. I have a few more of these tucked away in the archives, so maybe I'll pull them out sometime and do this again. If you made it this far, thank you for watching, and if you want to see more stuff like this, you can throw this video a like and tap that subscribe button, as well as the notification bell so you don't miss a thing. Before we go, I'd like to know, what are your thoughts on these plays? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you guys next time.